Wow, I'm so excited to be here today with you. I've been so impressed about the community that Louis has been building, and super excited to give you some very tactical tips on how to spend less, increase your ROI, and really do marketing over the next few years. That might be tough for some of us. Okay, how to grow during a downturn. That's what we're going to talk about today. And who is Branch? We're a mobile linking and measurement platform. We help you both measure your mobile marketing efforts on organic and paid, and actually create better experiences for your users. And we've been around for a while. And how about me? I am one of the founders of Branch. I was born and raised in Romania. I built an app with my co-founders. We worked on it for about 2 years. That's how we knew that this was a problem, and that's how we started Branch. Super passionate about growth, especially the organic side of it. And I actually taught a course on it at Stanford during COVID. It was a lot of work teaching a course, so I decided to not do it again. Okay, what does a downturn mean for marketing? So we kind of are already in a downturn. If you look at marketing budgets as a percent of total revenue, they actually decreased over time. And we think that this is actually going to go even lower. And if you break it down and you try to understand what sides of marketing are actually losing the most, you'll see that direct marketing, sales promotions, advertising, PR events, all those budgets are decreasing. And does this actually make sense? When you are faced with a potential recession, should you actually cut budgets, or are there other things we can do? So I'm going to give you 4 different areas that you should do instead of slashing budgets. The first one is to double down on ROI. And instead of cutting budgets, you can actually refocus your investments on the things that bring the highest ROI in your business. And why shouldn't you cut budgets? So actually, I did a lot of research on this and tried to understand what people have done in the past. And there was, in the last big recession, there was a study that looked at 1,000 companies, and they put them in 3 groups. Group number 1 increased spend, group 2 kept spend flat, and group 3 decreased spend. And what you saw, and then after the recession, the same company went and looked at what were the results. The people who increased spend actually were able to take advantage of a time when others weren't spending as much, and were actually able to increase their market share on average by 4.3%, and this is actually a lot. And the ones that, even the flat spend actually increased market share versus one that decreased spend lost. So instead of actually decreasing your spend, you can take your spend and make more out of it. How do you do that? Well, the first one is to measure your ROI, right? So before, if you just looked at app installs and if you just look at like ads and unknown organic, it's really hard to understand how we can do better. If you use a company like Branch that offers a mobile linking platform and a mobile measurement platform, you can actually understand all your different growth efforts and diversify them. And if you use one source of truth for all our channels, and instead of going in silos and looking at things separately, you might actually see that certain channels perform better than others. This is an analysis we did a few years ago across hundreds of apps to try to understand, what was the click-to-purchase rates for people coming from different channels. And you see that actually ads perform the least, and things like emails, smart banners from your website, or referrals actually perform much, much better. And this obviously might look very different for your company. The point is, if you actually look and compare all of this in one, you might understand that it's better to put your efforts in other places. Similarly, looking at value beyond the install, we looked at retention rate by acquisition channel, and we saw that actually the retention rate for more organic channels, it's much, much higher than if someone comes from an ad. The other really interesting thing you can do here is actually look over time. So if you use a tool like Branch that has a cohort analysis, you can actually look at different cohorts. People who come from your banners or your ads or your referrals, user to user, or even from different type of ads, and see over time, are they purchasing, are they installing more, are they coming back, what's their actual retention and value. So, instead of just driving and looking at driving ads to drive and measure app adoption, you can actually use a platform that allows you to actually harness and optimize your value beyond that and give users better experiences. So, when you think about what an app install is worth, I think what many of us look today is you just look at the CPI and then the return on ad spend. But there's many other things that you could look at. Is someone in an app versus the web, are you reducing the cost to serve because they're doing something in an app instead of interacting with a person? What's the incremental revenues of an app user? We saw that app users versus web users are twice as likely to actually buy. And what's the strategic value of app adoption? If someone has downloaded your app, are they going to stay with you longer? Are they going to do more things with you? So it's very important when you think of ROI that you don't just think of the install or maybe their first purchase, but think of all these other things in addition. Okay, so we've talked about measurement. The next part is really around rethinking who your users are during a recession. So there's been a lot of studies that analyzed users. And they, usually when you think about who is your ideal customer, they look different during a recession. And they found that actually during a recession, you might think usually, maybe like your ideal user is a specific type of person and you build like the user persona. Actually, personas change during a recession. So overall, the studies have found that there's four personas. One is, the slam on the brakes users, then pain by patient who, the slam on the brakes have no money. They're like, we're not going to buy anything. This pain by patients is there. They are under strain, but they are thinking that the recession will end. The comfortably well off, they don't care that much about it. And then the live for today is usually the younger Gen Z audience who's just living and they don't really think as much about the future and they're behaving differently. And then when you think of product categories, you can take your product, you can kind of like look at 4 different areas. Essentials, things that everyone needs. Treats, things that, they make you feel good, but you don't really need them. Postponables are things that you need, but you could buy later. And expendables is something like vacation. So then, if you understand where your product sits and where your users are, you can actually come up with each customer segment and come up with a strategy around it. So for, let's say, the slam on the brakes users, for essentials, you emphasize the price hit, the fact that you emphasize the price, you give discounts. For treats, you can shrink the sizes of the treat. For postponable, you can offer layaway plans. And expendables, you can offer do-it-yourself alternatives. And I actually went and broke down each of the consumers with all the different products. So if you download my slides at the end, you can actually look through all of this. I'm not going to go through each. But I think it's very important to understand where your product sits, what type of customers do you have, and then really rethink your strategy based on that. So if we're thinking about, okay, we are going to give a lot of promotions. And we've seen a lot. During a recession, people are a lot more cost conscious, the majority of those segments. So what do? Do you give incentives? Do you try to incentivize them to actually still come to your app? And if you do incentives, I have some examples here. But one of the things you always have to think is, make sure that the incentive and the flow makes sense, right? So if you take someone from an incentive, then you lose them when they download the app. They can get frustrated. This is an example of an incentive that Sephora does. In email, they say, go into the app, get the app, and we'll give you 10% off. Then if someone goes to the App Store, installs the app, they use Branch to make sure that they're taken to the exact same incentive that was sent to them in email. Another really interesting one is really kind of thinking through incentives with smart banners and emails. If you take someone from an email and you don't want to take them to the App Store directly, and this is an example with KFC, you could take them to the web and then give them a web banner and then take them to the app and make sure that the incentive is kind of flows along the way. And the other thing is you can actually give people very different incentives depending on their usage. So Burger King uses filters for people who have not used the app in 90 days and only gives those users promotions and uses branch link to make sure that only those users get specific promotions in the app. Okay, so we've talked about measurement. We talked about how you think about your users. The other one is really focusing on customer experience and customer journeys. So if during a recession, if you're not spending as much, or if you're spending in a more ROI way, one of the ways to increase your ROIs is to make sure that you don't lose people along the way, you don't annoy them with broken experiences. So these are some experiences, these are some examples of ways you can do this better. So if you use a platform that gives you measurement but also experience, you can actually both measure but also give your users better experiences. This is an example of Pandora, who works with their influencers, and LeBron James tweeted a link, and we made sure that actually when someone goes from that link and goes into the app, it's actually taken them to the LeBron James page and podcast. Another one is Obama tweeting a Spotify link, and we help them actually make sure that they're taken to the right spot in Spotify, even if they, let's say, don't have the Spotify app. Instagram stories are also a really good one. This can be both organic and promoted stories, and you can actually include quick links to the app. So this is a meditation app that I'm now trying, actually. I didn't know they were a branch customer before I tried them, so I was very pleasantly surprised by their link. So you're taken to, you can share from a story. And if you go from that story, you go and download the app, and then you're taken to the specific meditation that was sent to you by a friend or that you saw in the story. And one of my favorites, this is Yelp. Especially, I've just moved to San Francisco, and now it's harder to get reservations at restaurants than it was in South Bay. And you kind of go and you can add yourself to the list, and you can share it to the friend. If they go into the Yelp app from that link, or if they download the app, they're taken to the same and they're added to the wait list with you, so you guys can wait together for a restaurant. So this is one where you might get someone to understand that this is a new feature, then they'll use it. But the only way this works is if you actually take them to the right place, and we help with that. Okay, so we talked about experiences. The last one, which is obviously, this is, I think, would say my favorite, because I really, even when I think about marketing for branch, I am a big proponent of organic channels. And they are harder, and they are not as dependable. Because if you go and you spend ads, you know exactly how much you're going to get for it. If you build an amazing referral program, it takes longer. You don't know if you're going to get users from it in the end. Same with building your SEO strategy. But in the long term, it always has higher ROI, and it always does a lot better, especially if you keep iterating. One that's always been my favorite is this idea of referrals. And referrals, many people think about it only as an acquisition strategy, but it's actually an amazing retention strategy as well. We did an analysis, and my co-founder Alex loves these graphs. He used to be a data scientist before, and we looked at all the users using referral links, and actually many of them actually are taking users directly to a previously downloaded app. And if you think of best practices on our new organic channel, one is that you should incentivize your links. Because branch links are used in so many organic channels, we did another analysis to see how many of those are incentivized. And if they're incentivized, are they more likely to actually convert? And the answer is yes. Conversion from incentivized referrals have a much higher conversion rate than the bucket of links that are not incentivized. Making it engaging. When you share, instead of just sharing a link, making sure you share a picture. This is an example of Strava. If you share a ride, it actually shares pictures in the ride. And if someone clicks from the link, they take them directly to see your ride. Make it easy, making sure that people are taken to the right place in the right time. They don't break experiences. And making it relevant, sharing things that actually make sense to users. And of course, make it personalized. This is a really important one. We help companies take users from their website to the app, And you can just go and put a banner there, or you can go and customize and analyze and say, okay, people coming from this promotion should get a different banner, and then this country should look different. So we've analyzed everyone using our banners, and we looked at the level of customization. So people using our banners, just one banner everywhere, versus people doing a little bit of customizations, versus people doing a ton, like having 1,000 different A/B tests. And it looks extremely different. The more you personalize, the more you think about what the person's looking and understand where they are in their journey and show them the banner at the right spot, the more likely they are to actually click on it. So personalization is extremely, extremely important. So to recap, the 4 strategies. 1, double down on ROI instead of slashing your budget. Rethinking segmentation and incentives, because people behavior does change during a downturn. Focus on customer experience and customer journeys, and move and continue investing in your organic, sustainable channels. And with that was the presentation. If you want to download the slides, there's a QR code, the branch link, obviously, behind it. And if there's any questions, let me know. I'm here. Yay.